All right, we're back. We're back in the building as I take a sip of my CBD tea. I don't know why I find that funny. All right, look, if you follow the channel, you know that I've had like people join me over the last couple of weeks, and this week I didn't want to do it for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the sound quality isn't as good, man. I need to work out a way to improve that, because there's no point having people on if like listeners can't hear what we're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So I just assume I just need to plug my mic into the fucking laptop. I mean, it's probably just that straightforward. I just haven't done it yet. Do you know what I mean? So we'll test it out and we'll go again. But look, there's a couple of things that I want to discuss, and there's a couple of things that I've listed. I've actually made notes, and I just want to talk about a couple of things that have happened over the last week or so. But before I talk about these things, let's do a little bit of plugging. Let's plug, shall we? Look, please, I'm requesting, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can find the link to my podcast in the description of this video. So please. All right, that's enough begging. All right, so look, the first thing, and I suppose I've listed this in kind of order of priority, and the subject over the last week that has made me feel the most, I just want to feel, it's Anderson Silva and his fight against Uriah Hall. So I predicted that Anderson Silva was going to win this fight, and I made that prediction using my heart, not really my head. And look, the fight is what it was. Do you know what I mean? Like it went how it went. There's not really much to talk about in terms of the actual fight. It was a bit of a weird fight, to be honest, because there were so many like large chunks of time where nothing happened. And like Uriah Hall was just so like apprehensive, and Anderson Silva was trying to force a mistake. And you know what, you have to kind of give Uriah Hall credit for not biting on those movements that Anderson Silva was doing to try and set traps to make Uriah Hall make a mistake, so Anderson Silva could take advantage of it. But the fact is, Anderson Silva just isn't as fast as he once was, and his chin isn't as strong as it once was. And as a result, his style that he was so successful with over God knows how many years, which is based on him making his opponent make a mistake in order for him to take advantage of that mistake, it just doesn't work. And because of that, he started kind of lunging in, trying to force the issue. And in fact, it was kind of like Uriah Hall did to what Anderson Silva, what he has done to many opponents years gone by. Do you know what I mean? And like someone, I don't remember who, I think it might have been Luke Thomas, made like the comparison between how Anderson Silva finished Forrest Griffin and how Uriah Hall finished Anderson Silva. It's almost like we've come full circle. They were very similar in the way it happened. But look, firstly, let's just talk about Uriah Hall quickly, because I think I'm going to drag on a little bit about Anderson Silva. But Uriah Hall is a guy that you can see is physically talented. And like one massive red flag for me is when a fighter keeps telling you how he's mentally right, and keeps telling you how he had issues mentally and how now he's in a better place, and how this is the best version of me, you know, if I was a fighter, like if, you know, from Uriah Hall's point of view. And I don't know, I'm just on the mindset that like if you're working on mental deficiencies, then actions speak louder than words. And the way he fought that fight didn't show me any progression in terms of him controlling his own mind state during the fight. He's almost like his own worst enemy when it comes to the game. And with the performance that he put in, it didn't show me any improvement, like I've just said. And then in the post-fight interview, it was something that he focused on. Oh, I'm in a new team, I'm in a new camp, and he's really helping me mentally and this, that, and the other, which is fine. Look, everybody has things that they need to work on. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that he's trying to improve his mental state. I hope you can't hear people shouting in the background. But the fact of the matter is, your performance didn't didn't show an improvement in your mental state. So for me, and this is just me, myself, I prefer him to just keep that kind of stuff to himself. And to like just keep that in you. You don't need to talk about it so much. Everyone else is already. You don't need to talk about it as well. Just keep that shit to yourself and just show us in the octagon. And like when he, you know, he was talking about wanting to fight Stylebender and this, that, and the other. Not off that performance, you know. And then Dana White, what he said in the post-fight press conference, man, that will really, I mean, if that fight helped him gain any confidence, Dana White's comments after probably reduced whatever increase in confidence he experienced from the fight itself. Do you know what I mean? So, look, I don't know, man, but look, let's focus on Anderson Silva. Because Anderson Silva is an all-time great. He's one of my favourite fighters ever. And I don't think a lot of people... Well, no, let me rephrase that, because a lot of people do. But there's obviously a section of the audience, there's a section of the fan base of the sport that are just simply too young to know just how good or how great, Anderson Silva once was. Because, like, the way I put it is... I was saying this to my brother actually the other day when we were talking about Anderson Silva, because he's not a fan of mixed martial arts at all. But the way I explained to him just how good Anderson Silva was is like, currently you've got Khabib, right? And Khabib has consistently showed an improvement in his game, and he's just dominated his opponents, and you can just see how great he is. But everything he does is stuff we've seen other fighters do, but just to a much higher level. Does that make sense? Like the things that he does physically are things that we've seen other people do, but just not as well as what Khabib's able to do. But Anderson Silva's a guy that gave us moments in the octagon that me personally, I can't speak for everyone, but that I hadn't seen before. Like he didn't just give us great performances. Within those performances, he gave us fucking new shit to watch and think, how the fuck did he do that? Like the fight against Forrest Griffin, like against Stephan Bonner when he just went and stood against the octagon and just called Stephan Bonner onto him and said, come on, like you said you was going to take me down. You said you was going to push me against the fence to take me down. Take me down. Like the kick that knocked out Vitor. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many moments that we saw Anderson Silva give us throughout his career, and like I can't express, like I can't think of anybody in this current game that has been able to do that. Like how good Israel Adesanya is, right? Like he's currently in the argument for being the pound for pound best fighter at the moment. How good John Jones is and has been. Like, there's not a fighter that I can say currently that just gives you those oh shit moments. Like, what the fuck was that? Like, the only, like, I can like, for example, like Yair Rodriguez, when he did that elbow, when he knocked out, who was it? Who was he fighting? Was it Korean Zombie in the 5th round or whatever it was? And everyone's like, whoa, where did that come from? That is what Anderson Silva did on multiple occasions throughout his career. But it wasn't just the moments, because he was on this crazy run. I don't know, I should have really pulled out his Wikipedia page, but the amount of consistent title defenses and just how he toyed with his opponents, and how like whenever someone got into the octagon with him, it was literally just like, it was like how, like, you know how Khabib was going to fight Gaethje and everybody was like, oh, I don't know, this is his toughest test, I don't know. I think now, Khabib, the next person, if Khabib ever fights again, the next opponent he has, there will be a lot less of, oh, this might be the one that he trips up against. I think everybody has now got to a point with Khabib, if he fights again, it's just like Khabib, like it will be very difficult to see him losing, and that's how Anderson Silva was. That's how Anderson Silva had like got to a level where he fought, and it was just like, this guy, like who's going to beat this guy? Who's going to beat this guy? And the reason why I'm talking about all of this stuff, I just wanted to express to you guys just how just the magnitude of the career that he's had as a mixed martial artist. And for him to be in this position now, where he's got 2 fights left on his contract, and this was his penultimate fight, and it was billed for some reason as his last ever fight, and he went out the way he went out against a guy that just isn't at the level of the competition that Anderson Silva has beaten in the past. Or if this was Anderson Silva 5, 7, 8 years ago, he would have just dismantled Uriah Hall. Like, this is what his career's come to. Like, this is where he is. This is the predicament he's in now. He's 45 or whatever he is, and this is where he is. Having said all of that, I think, like, us as fans, and let me just quickly say this: Dana White, firstly, what a hypocrite. Like, how can he have this fight go ahead, right? And then say if somebody else promotes a fight with Anderson Silva, it would be disgusting, I think the word is he used, saying that he should never fight again and this, that and the other and blah, 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 and nobody else should ever promote an Anderson Silva fight because he's past it. He shouldn't be fighting anymore. But then the next question, all right, he's still got one more fight left in his contract. Will you let him go? Dana White wouldn't commit to saying no. Wouldn't commit to saying yeah, we'd let him go because we don't want to promote another fight for Anderson Silva. So that's kind of hypocrisy right there. But at the same time, you can't expect a man to sit there straight after the fight in a press conference, commit to something like that, right? Because it's a contractual obligation and they need to sit down, him and Anderson Silva, or the UFC and Anderson Silva, and work out what the next move is. So I wouldn't expect Dana White to sit there and say, yeah, I'm going to release him. But at the same time, I wouldn't expect him to sit there and say, oh, if somebody else promotes him, it's out of order, it will be disgusting, this man shouldn't fight again, blah, blah, blah. I just think us as fans, maybe we've kind of got double standards, and we're kind of the way we judge fighters, I'm not sure if it's correct. I'm not sure whether we have the right mind state when it comes to these guys, because let me land, even though no one's stopping me from talking. So look, Anderson Silva, a lot of people are saying he should retire, he shouldn't fight anymore, like he's not what he once was. But we're judging him against what he once was. We're judging this version of him against what he once was, right? If a football player, or for you Americans, a soccer player, players that have been legends for a club or just in the Premier League in England, and you see them get to a certain age and then they leave the heights that they were once at, and they kind of go to a team that isn't as good, and then they go down a division, then they go down another division, and you sit there thinking to yourself, bloody hell, he's playing in League One now. Like, for an example, my favourite player ever, a club legend for the Arsenal, Ian Wright. Ian Wright was at Arsenal. We won the league. He was at his prime, or he was at a club in its prime at that time. But he was just a little bit old. He was just getting over the hill, 33, 34, something like that. He went to West Ham, another Premier League club. And you thought to yourself, oh, that's it. This is it. He's coming towards the end of his career. From there, he went to like Burnley, I think, and Celtic in Scotland. But basically, he just went down the levels until he eventually retired. But nobody sits here saying, why is he playing there? He once played for the champions of England. He should retire. Do you know what I mean? I get it. When fighters are fighting, there's physical damage that they are taking in every fight. In that defeat against Uriah Hall, like, there's damage that he took that is accumulating. And it's a question of, at what point is it too much damage for someone like Anderson Silva? But at the same time, this is a grown man. And while we're sat here judging him against himself, what's going through his mind? What's going through his head? What does he want to do? Like, what is it that makes him happy? Like, why should we say to him, you can't do what makes you happy because it makes us upset watching you do what makes you happy? Do you know what I mean? I suppose that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, we can't sit here and look down on a man for doing what he loves. Like, he's actually, like, how many people actually get to say for a living they do what they love? Not many. And he's doing it, and we're sat here judging him for doing it just because he's not as good as doing what he loves as he once was. But that's just the nature of the fight game. Obviously, look, the comparison I made with football and mixed martial arts, I know they're two totally separate sports, you know. I get it. Like, there's not physical damage that Ian Wright took, and there's not kind of long-term effects that he might suffer from that can't be fixed by him playing for Burnley, apart from having to live there for a bit. That might leave an emotional scar on him. But like with Anderson Silva, like who are we to sit here and say to him, you shouldn't fight again? I just think like he's got one more fight left on his UFC contract. With the UFC kind of almost enforcing this is your last fight, even though you got one more fight on your contract. I just think the UFC should just give him a proper send-off. Give him a proper send-off, hype it up, make the whole event about Anderson Silva. Don't even call it a retirement. Just say this is his last fight with the UFC. And give it, like, there won't be fans there. They might, like, you know, I don't know when it's going to happen, but there won't be fans there. But give him the send-off he deserves. Like, just give him his flowers, as they say. Do you know what I mean? He deserves them. He deserves it. Like, the moments he gave us, like, he was, like, even just down to his fucking walkout. Like, there's not very many fighters that as soon as the first note of his music hits, it just sends chills down the back of your fucking spine. And Anderson Silva was one of them. As soon as that DMX song starts, I remember him against Vitor Belfort when that fight happened, like the hype and the intensity around it and stuff like that. But like, just as soon as, even when he fought people that you just knew he was going to beat, for example, like Forrest Griffin, just hearing him come out, it was a whole mood, as the kids say these days. And I just think he does, like, with what he's accomplished in the sport, I think he deserves a proper send-off. And I think the UFC should pick an opponent, a suitable opponent that won't just knock Anderson Silva out. Because here's another thing, like, if he just wants to fight and they're just tossing him these top guys, give him someone else, man. Give him, like, who's Mershot? Is it Mershot, the guy that Chimaev just beat? Give him someone like that. Someone that Anderson Silva could probably deal with on the feet, and someone that Anderson Silva will probably get taken down, but then he can actually threaten off his back. Someone that's going to be a competitive opponent. But yeah, that's my take on Anderson Silva. That the entire card was actually quite interesting. The Bryce Mitchell, I wanted to quickly talk about Bryce Mitchell because I'm a big Bryce Mitchell fan. I love Bryce Mitchell. I love his perspective. I love his outlook. I love the way he fights. Firstly, I just want to say I was impressed with Feely. I didn't think Feely had it in him to be able to get Bryce Mitchell off him the way he did. Every time he got taken down, it was competitive. Like, there was not, I can't remember a single moment where Bryce Mitchell was totally in control when he was on top of Feely. Feely made it so difficult for him to impose his game plan. And Bryce Mitchell's game plan is to get on top of his opponent, control the posture of his opponent, and then try and work a submission. Bryce Mitchell didn't really get very many opportunities to work submissions during that fight because Feely was always on the attack. He didn't just accept being taken down. He just didn't accept being on his back. And I was very, very impressed with Feely, man, for that fight. But Mitchell, like, his fighting style just is very it reminds me, I was trying to think of a posh word, but I'll just use the basic English that I know. It reminds me of Khabib, the way he fights. Because, you know, like I say, just from a very basic level, he wants to close the distance, get his opponent down. And previous opponents, he's been able to control his opponent the way Khabib has previously controlled his opponent. But on this occasion, he wasn't able to. He wasn't able to control Feely the way Khabib controls his opponent. So that's something that he's obviously working on and improving on. But I'm just a fan of Bryce Mitchell, and I want to see him fight again. And I think he's broken into the top 10 now. So that featherweight division, like in the next year or so, if he continues doing what he's doing, then there's potential that he'll be up there, a contender sort of thing. And quickly, people were moaning about the speech, the passionate speech he made during a post-fight press conference, giving his views about masks and how he feels people should be allowed to make their own decisions about wearing masks and blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. I just quickly want to say, man, like people were sat here like, I think he tweeted himself that I've lost a lot of followers since I said that. And I just don't understand. Like, I don't agree with some of the stuff he said during that speech, but you can tell he made that speech or he expressed his opinions with no malice. There was no ulterior motive. It was just what he's seen, his own lived experience. He's just sharing it with us, the audience. And like, you can't just dismiss a man for having a different opinion to you. That's not how it's supposed to work. And like that, I actually watched it and I thought, all right, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. I can see where you're coming from there. But at no point did I sit there thinking to myself, man, I'm going to have to stop following this guy. But what, like, people are so like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, why are people so like narrow-minded? And not just narrow-minded. If someone expresses an opinion that just doesn't exactly match yours, he's not your enemy. It's not your enemy. Just let him have his opinion. He's like, what, 27 or something like that. Maybe in a year's time, his opinion's going to change. I'm not saying that it should change. I'm just saying he's growing as an individual, as are you. So just because right now you guys don't think the same way about a certain topic, it doesn't mean further down the line you might think the same way about a different topic. You can't just dismiss someone because they've expressed one opinion about one subject. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, I'm talking about people on Twitter here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I am on Twitter, but like MMA Twitter itself, I mean, there are some funny people on there. Don't get me wrong, but generally speaking, it's just a fucking cesspool. People tweet to get a reaction. I should not put that in shot. They tweet because they want likes, they want retweets, they want interaction with other human beings. So I just feel like a lot of the time people on Twitter aren't actually even giving their own true opinion. They're just giving an opinion to get a reaction. And if that's where you live your life, you need to grow up. You need to grow up. All right, the next thing. One of my favourite subjects to talk about, Deontay Wilder. So look, I spoke about this previously, right? I made a video, it was about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke about how Deontay Wilder, I think it was when he put out an initial tweet saying to Tyson Fury that, fight me or this, that and the other. But since then, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 days ago, he put out that video. The infamous video where he's basically standing there holding the phone in his hand like that. Firstly, let's just talk about the video itself. Like, if you're gonna make a video, if you're gonna produce a video, at least make it a good. Like, I think I could have edited a better video than that. Like, even the bronze bomber, the logo was like, it wasn't even HD. Like, it was like he screenshotted it. Like, he went on a website for his own logo and he screenshotted it, then he cropped it. And then the actual video itself, like, he's holding the phone and he's standing high up in some building and you can see the skyline behind him. And it's a shit video, right? Just production quality wise, it's a shit video. One thing that I struggle with, and I haven't seen anyone talk about this, is like, he's standing there barefaced lying. He's just standing there lying, right? And he's doing it using verses or words from the Bible. So for someone that's a religious man, for someone that believes in God and is a committed Christian, why are you lying while using the Bible as a metaphor for what's going on in your life? But you're lying though. I'm pretty sure one of the main things in all, I'm not very religious myself, but one of the main things in all religions is you shouldn't lie. You shouldn't deceive people. You're standing there deceiving people. using religious words, like, I mean, it's very hard to find any credibility in you, Deontay Wilder, as a man, as it is. But just to push it over the edge, just that little bit more, you got to use religious words and bring religion into it, and race and this, that, and the other. But we'll get there. We'll talk about that later. The claims themselves. Breland put muscle relaxers in my water. Well, we'll get to that because that was in his interview. I don't think he actually mentioned it during that video. But he spoke about how he feels Breland was part of the other camp. The gloves. Tyson Fury's gloves. I've spoken about this before. His gloves. And he had an egg weight in his glove. And this goes back to what I was saying before, man. This guy, Deontay Wilder, has just... It's one thing, believe in your own hype, right? You can believe your own hype, but then something can happen to bring you back down to ground. So, for example, you can argue maybe Anthony Joshua believed his own hype. I don't know if this is true, but you can say Anthony Joshua might have believed his own hype. He got beat by Ruiz. And what did he do? He put his feet back on the ground and he went again. Lomachenko now. He's lost to Teofimo Lopez. You might say, oh, he believed his own hype. He thought he didn't give Lopez a respect he should have. I don't believe that for a second. I'm just giving an example. And Lomachenko now, he has to prove himself. He has to come back stronger. Deontay Wilder lost, got humiliated, got dismantled. And rather than addressing the fact that I'm not as good as I thought I was, he's doubled down. He's doubled down on this believing his own hype trait that he's got. and he's just concocted this story of fucking bullshit and deception. And I don't know what part of him or his team thought that a general audience is going to really buy this. We're going to scoop this up. We're going to grab this with both hands and say, oh no, Deontay. He had loaded gloves. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're going to sit and say, oh, that Breland, I always knew he was a dodgy character. Like, of course nobody actually fucking believes what he's saying. But the reason why he's doing this is he's not talking to you and me. He's not talking to us, the wider audience. There's a reason why as soon as he dropped that video, he spoke to fucking 78 Sports, and then he spoke to Barbershop Conversations, guys. Feel free to hit the subscribe button. There's a reason why he spoke to both of them guys. And he's got the nerve to say, oh, I'm not going to speak to the what they call old media. I'm not going to speak to the old media because they're all part of it. They're all part of the same system that wants to cheat me and take me down. And I don't believe for a fucking second that Barbershop Conversation and 78 Sport believe what Deontay Wilder is telling them. But they know that this is what the audience that they have managed to gain by being such fanboys of Deontay Wilder. They know that this is what those fanboys want to hear. Like, even during those interviews, like, I listened to the 78 Sports one. I couldn't listen to the Barbershop. I just can't stand the way that interaction was going, and I just checked out. But even like during the interview with 78 Sports, like Deontay Wilder was like, I got proof. I got evidence, man. Like, he's talking about how he's got proof and evidence that Tyson Fury's gloves were loaded. But not once did 78 Sports say, what is your proof? What's your evidence? Like, what is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, just ask the question. Let Deontay Wilder say, oh, nice, it's going through a legal thing, so I can't say right now. Like, let him say that. They don't challenge him on anything. So he's just there in his own little bubble, in his own little world, with his own little fanboys, and they're just having a fucking pity party amongst themselves, while the rest of the world are sat here looking at what's going on and just laughing. And just thinking to like me, I'm just sat here thinking, fuck, man. Like, you're such... you're such an exciting fighter. I'd love to see you fight again. But, like, help me have some compassion towards you. Because right now, all you're doing is making everybody at the world at large look at you and just laugh. You're a laughing stock. And like he's just gone into this igloo of the LDBC. And within that igloo, all he can hear around the fucking walls of this igloo is just people telling him that he's a fucking king. King of what? King of bullshit, that's what. It's a fucking joke, man. Like, he's so like it's just so embarrassing to the point where he tweeted about how he was offered more money to fight AJ, and now Tyson Fury, so it's time for you to do the right thing. Whereas, like, back then, all you could talk about is how AJ's ducking you. They don't want the fight. And what's all this? Remember all this talk about, oh no, I didn't take that deal with AJ because I want to do things on my own terms. I want to be my own boss. I want to do things on my own terms. Do things on your own fucking terms. You're sat here telling us that you want to fight Tyson Fury again. You have or had a contract that obligated Tyson Fury to give you a rematch. Do things on your own terms. Be your own boss. Nah, I'm a boss, man. I'm a boss. Well, fucking fighting then. What more is there to do? Like, you said you want to be your own man. This is the perfect opportunity to show that you're your own boss. You're your own man. It's a fucking joke, man. He's a joke. Sorry I got so worked up there. Almost started sweating. Right, last thing. Israel Adesanya. So look, that's twice I've done that. Twice I've done that today. Israel Adesanya came as a bit of a shock that he's fighting, or terms have been agreed for him to fight Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title. Israel Adesanya is stepping up. He's moving up to light heavyweight to become champ. And as soon as that was made not official, as soon as Dana White mentioned that that's happening, you just got like, oh, why didn't he do that before? Why didn't he do that before? And why didn't he fight John Jones? Like, they've been going back and forth. And if he was going to go up to light heavyweight anyway, why didn't he just do that and fight John Jones? Valid, fair question. Valid. While I take another sip of my CBD tea. It's gone a bit cold now because I've been fucking sat here talking for too long. But yeah. So the question is this a good look for Israel Adesanya? So there's two sides of the argument, two sides of the coin. One side, if you're going to do it, why didn't you just do it? Why didn't you just do it and fight John Jones now? That should be the next fight. The other side of the coin is, this guy has always done things on his terms. Like, remember when he beat Whitaker and he said, I want to fight Yoel Romero, when Yoel Romero wasn't even a guy that was being considered a number one contender for the title. He made that fight happen. Like, as soon as he beat Costa, he was talking about fighting Cannonier. So if Cannonier had beaten Whitaker, that would have been the fight. That would have been the fight. And it would have been him basically saying, although this is slightly different because Cannonier would have been on paper, he would have been a viable number one contender. And he's always said, Israel Adesanya, that I'm going to fight John Jones in 2021 in International Fight Week, June 2021. Well, we're fast approaching that date. And it would actually be very interesting because, like, for me, like, what should happen? What should the UFC do? I've heard Ariel Helwani talk about the fact that this fight needs to happen now. This fight needs to happen now. Blah blah blah, etc. 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 It's fine. Like, I agree with him to an extent. Like, I've said it myself personally. I want to see this fight. I want to see John Jones fight Israel Adesanya. But one thing that I would find really, really appealing, is John Jones right now is in this no man's land. He's not a heavyweight yet. But he's not a light heavyweight because he's relinquished his title. What is he going to do next? So now look, we've got John Jones, who is waiting to see what's going to happen in the heavyweight division. I can't see John Jones fighting a contender right? I can't see him fighting a top 5 heavyweight, for example. What I can see potentially happening is John Jones waiting for Francis Ngannou to fight Stipe, which I think is meant to be happening in February, or it's targeted for February, and fighting the winner of that International Fight Week. If he's going to wait for International Fight Week 2021, what would be really, really sweet, in my humble opinion, is if Israel Adesanya beats Jan Blachowicz in March or whenever whenever they're going to fight. Apparently, it will be kind of in the first couple of months of the year. If he beats Jan Blachowicz, then John Jones against the champion of the light heavyweight division, Israel Adesanya, International Fight Week. Even though we might not have any fans there, but you know what I mean. But nobody would have preempted that it would go down with Israel as the champion and John Jones challenging him for his own belt that he didn't actually lose. The narrative would be so fucking sweet, and I think that's what should happen next. That's my opinion. That's what I think should happen next. But who knows, innit? Who knows what's going to happen? Just a quickly last little tidbits. So obviously Dana White also did say that, yeah, that's done, when he was asked about Dustin Poirier against Conor McGregor. I was actually a little bit annoyed watching that press conference because nobody said when, what event. Like, they just said, oh, like, he said, yeah, that's done, and that was it. Like, nobody said, wait, hold on a minute, this is news to me, when they fighting each other. They just brushed over it. And just as well, really, because then Dustin Poirier, I saw him tweeting yesterday or 2 days ago, talking about, I can't remember the exact tweet. I did retweet it, gave it a little RT, but he said something about how the make the money right or make the deal right or something like that. So clearly it isn't done. Conor McGregor also said that it's not done yet. And also what isn't done is Khabib's career. Like, Dana White also said he had a conversation with Khabib and he may come back. He may not be done, and I'm gonna give Khabib a pass here because I remember I spoke about Khabib and how he's a man of his word, and if he said he's retiring, he's gonna retire. That's it, he's done. But I did also mention that he did it in an emotional state. He did it in an emotional state. His dad hasn't long gone, and like if he goes back on his word, you can give him a pass for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can't have been hard. It can't have been easy doing what he did, going into that fight the way he fought and winning the way he won, and just the explosion of emotion in him. And just like, you need to, if you're going to choose to retire, especially in your prime, the way Khabib is, you need to be emotionally stable before you make that decision. And clearly he wasn't when he made that decision. So that lightweight division, and in my fantasies I was talking about an 8-man tournament and this, that and the other. We'll have to just wait and see. It's kind of in no man's land, and I think Khabib has every right to take some time out and just really consider his options before he picks one and says, right, this is what I'm doing next. So fair play to him. Final thing before I go, I just quickly want to say, if you haven't already, make sure you watch Luke Thomas and Joe Rogan, because I really enjoyed it, man. Look, I'm a fan of Luke Thomas. I've told you guys this a million times. I don't always agree with him. Sometimes his personality really does get on my tits when he dismisses Brian Campbell on certain occasions, when he just dismisses a certain genre of music or a band or a rapper or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's very kind of regimented in this is what is good and this isn't. But that's him. But that part of his personality is what makes him so fucking good at his job. That is what makes him sit there and watch fights fucking time after time after time. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't sit there and watch a fight 49 times in a row. Mate, like, I can't concentrate for that long. He can, and that's why he's good at what he does. Like, he sits there and he actually takes in the information needed to take in to have an opinion about certain things. He's not like me. I just fucking talk. I don't do the homework. I don't do the work needed to talk. But I do it. Do you know what I mean? So you gotta give him his dues, man. And especially when it comes to fighter pay and like the USADA stuff and whatnot, the stuff that he spoke about during that appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, I think he came across really well, man. I think he did a really good job. I think he expressed his opinions in a good way, and he made a good argument for his beliefs and his opinions. So he deserves credit for that, man. And he's one of the best that we've got in the sport. Like, he's not like that fucking, who is it, Jeff Rothstein, sorry if that's not his name, but there's a guy that works for Bloody Elbow, who all he ever does is moan about the UFC. That's all he ever fucking does. And he's so annoying, man. Like he just, like, he's like a social justice warrior. And, like, I'm gonna have to name him because, man, Bloody Elbow. They had a child porn conviction in Bloody Elbow, by the way. Who remembers that? There was some geezer who, it's not funny, I don't know why I'm smiling, but some writer for Bloody Elbow was in a child porn ring. Like, bruv. And Bloody Elbow, the funny thing is, Bloody Elbow are kind of like this self-righteous type of brand. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're always on the right side of justice and what's right and what's wrong, and the UFC are completely incapable of making any correct decisions according to this writer. I can't find it, man. I'm on the website. I don't know whether they've got a meet our team type section. But anyway, I don't know why I'm sitting here trying to tell you. If you're on Twitter, you'll know who I'm on about, man. You'll know who I'm on about. Oh, fuck it. Arsenal playing at the moment, and did we just score? No, we didn't. But I should really go now, so I'll talk to you guys next time. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, like this, comment on anything that I've discussed during this video, share this with a friend if you've enjoyed it, and like I said, please subscribe to my podcast using all of the links in the description. Not all of them, just the one that applies to you. And I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ta!